10.Borobudur book is not a temple. Part 10 is complete. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and Research. Complete info. WhatsApp to +62813 2132 9787. Jewish version Saba. Sheba. Hebrew. Espa is a kingdom mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures, Old Testament, and the Quran. Sheba features in Ethiopian, Hebrew and Quranic traditions. Among other things, it is the home of the biblical Queen of Sheba, named Makeda in the Ethiopian tradition and Bilqi in the Arabic tradition. Modern archaeological studies support the view that the biblical kingdom of Sheba was the ancient Semitic civilization of Saba in southern Arabia, in Yemen, between 1200 BC to 275 AD with its capital Marib. The kingdom fell after a long but sporadic civil war between several Yemeni dynasties claiming the kingdom, resulting in the late emergence of the Himyarite kingdom. Similar descriptions in the Hebrew Bible are found in Strabo's writings and Assyrian histories of the Sabaeans. Their civilization stretched as far as Aqaba with small colonies to protect trade routes. These colonies include Yathrib and the Central Arab Kingdom of Kinda and northern Ethiopia, where archaeologists found an ancient temple dedicated to the chief god Saba el-Makka. The study of the history and culture of this kingdom is still patchy, especially the chronology of historical events and kings. The two names Sheba, spelled in Hebrew as Shin, and Seba, spelled as Samek, are mentioned several times in the Bible with different genealogies. For example, in the Table of Nations Seba, together with Dedan, are listed as descendants of Noah Ham's son, as the son of Ramah, son of Cush. Later in Genesis, Sheba and Dedan are listed as the names of the children of Yoksan, another Abraham son of Sheba listed in the Table of Nations as the sons of Joktan. Another descendant of the son of Noah Shem. There are several other possible reasons for this. One theory is that Saba established many colonies to control trade routes and their various caravan centers in the ancient Israelites. As their ethnology is based on geographical and political reasons, not necessarily Arab race, another theory suggests that Saba originated from the south of the Levant and founded their kingdom in the ruins of the Manaean kingdom. This is still a theory, however, and cannot be confirmed. The most famous claim to fame for the biblical land of Sheba is the story of the Queen of Sheba, who traveled to Jerusalem to question King Solomon, arriving in a large caravan with precious stones, spices and gold. The Arabic Christian text apocryphal Kitab al-Magal, considered part of Clementine literature, and the Syriac Gwa treasures mention a tradition that after being founded by the sons of Saba, son of Joktan, there was a succession of 60 female rulers until Solomon's time. The Judeo-Roman historian Josephus describes a place called Saba as the walled, royal city of Ethiopia, which Cambyses later named Meroe. He said, "It is well covered by the fairly rounded Nile, and the other rivers, Astopus and Astaboras, offering protection from both foreign armies and river floods." According to Josephus, it conquered Saba, which brought great fame to Egypt, as well as exposing his personal background as a slave boy named Musa. The following is a list of two alternative rulers of the kingdom of Sheba. Rulers of Saba and Himyar. A reconstruction of the genealogies of the rulers of Saba and Himyar based on surviving inscriptions. Based in the work of Dr. Javad Ali. Version 1. Samahu. Ali ca. 750 BC. Yada. Il-Dari. Yathi. Amar Watar Yada. Il-Bayan. Sheba to Himyar afterward. Version 2. High Priest Mukaribs from the Sabians 1200 to 800 BC. Unknown to Mukaribs Saba. Yadal Yanif ben Kariba il 755-740 BC. Samahu. Ali Dari Im ben Yadal Yanuf ca. 740 to 715 BC. Yathi. Amar my baby after 715 BC. Damar. Ali I after 715 before ca. 685 BC. Samahuli Yanuf 2 ca. 545 ca. 525 BC. Kings of Saba Malik style. Yathi. Amar Bayan 2 ca. 525 ca. 495 BC. My Kariba il after 495 BC. ca. 410 ca. 380 BCN. Yathi, Amar Watar Yakrub Malik Dari Samahuli Yanu 5e. Yadal Bayan 3 Yakrub Malik Watar Yathi, Amar. For Himyar after Marib. Herb Ale Water bin Ali bin Thamar. Version 2. High Priest Muckaribs of the Sabians. 1200 800 B.C. Unknown to Muckaribs Saba. Yadal Yanif ben Kariba il Ca. 755 Ca. 740 B.C. Samahu. Ali Dari Im ben Yadal Yanuf Ca. 740 to 715 BC Yathi. Amar my baby after 715 BC. Damar. Ali I after 715 before Ca. 685 BC Kariba il Watar I Ca.685 Ca.675 BC. Saba version of Islamic scholars. History of the Saba Kingdom. Saba is a classical century kingdom dating back to 1300 BC, located in present-day Yemen. The fame of the land of Saba is truly phenomenal and awe-inspiring for anyone who knows the story. Who is Saba? In the hadith of Farwa bin Musaik, Rasulullah Allahu alayhi wa salam was once asked by a man, O Messenger of Allah, please tell me about Saba. What is Saba? That. Is it the name of a place or is it the name of a woman? He replied, he is not the name of a place and not the name of a woman, but he is a man who has 10 children from the Arab nation. 6 of his children occupy the territory of Yemen and 4 of them occupy the territory of Syria. Narrated by Abu Dawud, number 3988 and Tirmidzi, no. 3222. In the history of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu there are additional names of the children of Saba. As for those who occupy the territory of Yemen, they are Ma'juj, Kinda, Al-Azd, Al-Asyarian, Anmar, and Himyar. And those who occupied the region of Sham were Lakam, Judzam, Amila, and Ghassan Aur Ahmad, no. 2898. Historians also note that the real name of Saba is Abdu Ash-Shams. And as we know, the names of the Arab tribes are taken from the names of the children of Saba. Kingdom of Saba. Originally the Kingdom of Saba was known as the Mu'ina dynasty while their kings were nicknamed as Mukrib Saba. The capital is Sharwa, whose ruins lie 50 kilometers to the northwest of the city of Marib. It was during this period that the Marib Dam was built. This period was between 1300 BC and 620 BC. In the next period, between 620 BC 115 BC, then they were known as Saba. They made Marib their capital. Geographic location. In the past, the Arabian Peninsula area was broadly divided into 2 parts, the north and the south. Southern Arabia is more advanced than northern Arabia. The southern Arab community is a dynamic and civilized society. They have known contacts with the international world because their ports are open to foreign traders who wish to trade there. While the North Arabs are those accustomed to the rigors of desert life, they are rigid and innocent due to a lack of contact with the outside world. Of course, the geography of the Kingdom of Saba greatly influenced the progress of their civilization. Another reason mentioned by historians is the occurrence of civil war among the people of Saba, while their dam needed restoration because it was damaged by their enemies. At Tahrir wa at Tanwir, 169, the civil war diverted them from repairing the Ma Dam. Rib. This dam was destroyed around the year 542 AD. After that, they lived in trouble. The plants that thrived on their land no longer produced fruit as before, and Yemen is currently one of the poorest and driest countries in the Arabian Peninsula. He is not the name of a place or the name of a woman, but he is a man who has 10 children from the Arab nation. 6 of his children occupy the territory of Yemen and 4 of them occupy the territory of Syria. Narrated by Abu Dawud, number 3988 and Tirmidzi, no. 3222. In the history of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu there are additional names of the children of Saba. As for those who occupy the territory of Yemen, they are Ma'juj, Kinda, Al-Azd, Al-Asyarian, Anmar, and Himyar. And those who occupied the region of Sham were Lakam, Judzam, Amila, and Ghassan Aur Ahmad, no. 2898. These are the author's subjective conclusions about Saba and Solomon. Saba is a classic century-old kingdom dating back to 1300 BC, located in present-day Yemen. The fame of the land of Sabah is truly phenomenal and awe-inspiring for anyone who knows the story. Modern archaeological studies support the view that the biblical kingdom of Sheba was the ancient Semitic civilization of Sabah in southern Arabia, in Yemen, between 1200 BC to 275 AD with its capital Marib. The kingdom fell after a long and sporadic civil war between several Yemeni dynasties claiming to be the kingdom of Sabah, until the end of the Great Himyarite dynasty. 1200-650 BC a kingdom was established that initiated power in the area, namely the Ma'an kingdom and the Qutban kingdom. The people of Yemen came from the Banu Qathan clan who were the descendants of Yarub bin Qathan. These Banu Qathan came from the Mesopotamia region. The Qutban kingdom was founded in South Yemen in about 1000 BC. Qutban kingdom was established because of the Ma'an kingdom's political tactics to strengthen its power. If the power of North Yemen was achieved by the Ma'an kingdom, the territory of South Yemen was also controlled by the Ma'an kingdom by establishing the Qutban kingdom. The Ma'an Empire exerted influence over Egypt, the Arabian Peninsula, Greece and Rome. The next factor that caused the collapse of the Ma'an kingdom was the emergence of the kingdom of Sabah in central Yemen, located between the Ma'an kingdom, North Yemen, and the Qutban kingdom, South Yemen. The kingdom of Sabah, which began to appear in 950 BC, had a considerable influence on the collapse of this kingdom. Initially the kingdom of Sabah was known as the Mu'ina dynasty while their kings were dubbed as Mukrib Sabah. The capital is Sharwa, whose ruins lie 50 kilometers to the northwest of the city of Marib. In the next period, between 620 BC 115 BC, their name Sabah became famous and recorded in history. They made Marib their capital. This dam was destroyed around the year 542 AD. After that, they lived in trouble. The plants that thrived on their land no longer produced fruit as before, and Yemen is currently one of the poorest and driest countries in the Arabian Peninsula. The connection with the discussion of this book about Sabah in Java, Sunda land, Borobudur and Sulaiman, pay attention to the years recorded in history which I compiled based on the previous or oldest year. Then later in the explanation we can find out when the two figures Sabah and Solomon met. The rulers of Sabah and Himyar. A reconstruction of the genealogies of the rulers of Sabah and Himyar based on surviving inscriptions. Based in the work of Dr. Javad Ali. Version 2 of the Kingdom of Sabah is 1200-800 BC. In the years 1200-800 BC, the time of which the genealogy of his name is unknown, and in the years 755-740 BC it was only known the name of his successor, namely, Yadul Yanif ben Kariba Il and so on. So according to the author of the Sabah period that was not recorded was the period of the Sabah kingdom in Java, and that period was also the time of the meeting of Sulaiman and the queen of Sabah, Bilqis. 935 BC to around 800 BC Sulaiman died after meeting the queen of Sabah, namely Bilqis in Java, around 40 years old in Arabia and 35 years in Java. Namely Sabah is of Arab descent, 6 people in Arabia and 4 people outside of Arabia. This is where the origin of the Bilqis lineage comes from, and those who met Solomon, in the land of Sunda land, he was previously called Meroe. About the Sabah Empire in Sunda land has been explained above, namely the civilization that started human civilization on Earth in addition to those in the Sahul mainland. High civilization in Sunda land is a civilization that cooperates and lives together with non-human beings, namely the type of jinn and non-human beings, namely creatures that have existed since before Adam. These creatures exist in Sunda land. Ayajal is a group of jinn who has a physical body and can be injured and bleed. From the 3 previous groups of people, Earth has experienced a period of chaos, while the other 2 creatures do not have a body like Ajajal. Banyal Yan was the second occupant before the human nation was born on Earth. The devil was not yet born on Earth, the 4th generation of the devil from the Jinn nation. Meanwhile, the clever Banyal Yan who had fled was hiding in small islands with tropical climates. As for now, hiding in Indonesian territory because the country has an island. Those who were hiding survived even though they didn't have a kingdom anymore, because their kingdom was completely destroyed. What later in the discussion of this book is this type of genie that collaborates with the Sabah civilization in Java. This genie or being that is able to cooperate with humans, can shorten the distance, fly above Earth, Enter the earth, also explore the sky. Humans who can do this all are humans allied with these pre-Adam beings. Which in the future this kind of ability can also be done by Solomon to conquer Queen Saba. One type or race of non-human beings that the Americans call and give their name is the extraterrestrial gray race, which is the most familiar race of humans on Earth. This is because they have gray skin. In addition, other characteristics of this race are thin stature, large head, without hair, big black eyes, without eyebrows and eyelashes. That is the image captured by the Americans about non-human beings. These creatures are creatures from outer space. These creatures can enter and exit the Earth quickly as well as in and out of the Sun. For those creatures described above, the Sun can also function as a doorway to our solar system. These creatures are not as dense as us in the third dimension, their bodies are etheric. The big war before the World War occurred was a war like nuclear war. This is recorded in the story of Ramayana and Bharatayuddha. The war was very powerful, and it was true that there were traces of this war on Earth, and it is still there today. The creatures of pra-Adam that existed at the time of Saba were as follows. Based in the posture and place of origin from planets outside the planet Earth, these creatures are divided into three main types of predecessors of non-human beings, namely 1. Zeta Reticuli. They were 4.5 feet on average and they had no noses. They have a rough temper. 2. Betelgeuse and Rigel in the Orion group. They average 7 to 8 feet tall and they have big noses. Unlike the above types, this type has a more refined and polite temperament. 3. Derived from the Bellatrix star in the Orion cluster. This type is the shortest compared to other types. Only 3.5 feet tall. They also don't have noses. Like their brother from Zeta Reticuli, they also have a rough temperament. The two creatures are the type of the Jinn group, and one being is not from the Jinn group. It is bodied and bloody. It is from this bloody group that has the descendants of creatures who have the ability to go in and out of Earth and fly through the sky. From this creature the Saba civilization can have progress, more than any existing human ability. This type of creature is the main type where the variants and their offspring can be in the form of a monkey named Hanuman, a dragon and a bird which is called Jatayu. Solomon has an army of these types of creatures, namely the original human type, Jinn, and the pra-Adam creature in the form of a bird named Hud. Hud, whose creatures other than large birds are some of the same creatures that are owned by creatures that cooperate with Saba, having the skills in warfare as a creature in the form of a bird. Solomon's troops who have the ability to enter and exit the earth are creatures that will later play a role at the transfer of the palace and the throne of Bilqis, the science of control and control. These extraordinary creatures in the time of Bilqis and before Solomon had been studied and practiced by the rulers and scientists of his time, whose knowledge was written in books that were deliberately created by humans to be studied. This knowledge at the time of David and Solomon had also been understood by humans, namely Ashif bin Barkia. The exact location of the kingdom of Saba, which has many colonies in areas on earth, including in the land of Arabia, is the Sunda land. In the days of the Sunda land it was still a large island, where the early civilization of Saba stood. At that time the civilization was not yet named Saba. Conducted an expansion where one of the colonies was Saba in the Middle East, which succeeded in conquering the Ma'an kingdom, the kingdom before Saba. Then the name Saba began to be recorded by other civilizations. The kingdom of Saba is centered in Sunda land, precisely on the land where the rituals of the kings in the pre-Saba civilization took place, namely the kingdom of Rama or Atlantis, and the period after the rule of Queen Bilqis, namely the land of Java, where until now many have found relics. Sun worship ceremony. Borobudur temple is a symbol of the progress of the Saba civilization. The temple displays the progress of the Saba civilization which we can still see today. The Saba civilization recorded in the Ramayana and Bharatayuddha epics, in the temple depicting the Saba philosophy and teaching rituals that have been perfected by Solomon. The Kedu plain is a plain where all the rituals of Saba are carried out. Borobudur, Prambanan and Mendat are records of the philosophy of Saba's teachings, where Borobudur is also a miniature record of the Saba civilization which was the center of the meeting of the Saba colony kingdom at its time. During the conquest of Saba by Sulayman, Borobudur remained an icon of civilization and a record of Saba's teachings, and Sulayman made improvements to the shape and additions to the main stupa at the top of the statue and its reliefs. The temples that existed during the Sabah period and were not refined by Suleiman were Suku and Kandi, or a large site in Chanjar, Gunung Padahyang site, Gunung Padang in the local dialect of the local community. The land where the kings gathered, namely the kings belonging to the Sabah colony, was a land in the Second Valley. At that time the valley was named the Valley of the Ants, where the kings who brought representatives of their troops gathered, to meet the queen of their rulers, Queen of Sabah. The place or building of the Queen of Sabah has a rest where they perform rituals of worshipping the gods, which in essence are worship of the sun, which is currently named Boko Temple, where the kings who are present, namely the kingdoms included in the power and the Sabah colony gather, who brought his troops gathered on the vast plains in the Valley of the Ant. The kings gathered in the Boko Palace with Queen Saba. The pre-Adam creature that resembles an ant is a creature that can enter and penetrate the earth, a creature that can move quickly to bring Saba's throne to Solomon, who at the time of Saba this creature also served Saba. After Solomon's control of Saba, the creature was under Solomon's control, and experienced deep fear when Solomon entered the valley where the ant-shaped colony was. While the center of the kingdom of Saba, during the Sunda land era, it was still an island on a sloping land and a wide side of the river, which is currently on the seabed between the islands of Kalimantan and Java around Bawin Island and Bangka Island. The creature before Adam was in the form of a bird that still existed in human life who was controlled by Saba, named Garuda, while the pra-Adam type being controlled by Solomon was named Hudhud, from pra-Adam's being in the form of a bird named Hud. Hud, this is Salayam knowing about the Saba civilization. Worship the sun. Hudhud was another bird-shaped planet who reported to Solomon about the existence of a civilization in the south that had a great throne and worshipped the sun. But Suleiman did not necessarily believe in the creature's report. Suleiman himself saw and confirmed the truth of the bird-shaped creature's report by making his quick journey to the Kedu Plain, the Javanese land of the Saba civilization in the Sunda land. The Saba civilization that performs rituals of worshipping the sun in the Kedu Plain, a civilization centered around the island of Bawin as the center of the kingdom and the area of worship in the mountains of Java Island, a great civilization with the queen as the ruler who has everything, with extraordinary intelligence due to collaborating with the being that can penetrate the earth and the sky as the pre-Adam being. The Saba civilization does not recognize the existence of an afterlife, worship the sun and even worship the jinn who they think are angels. That's why Allah SWT sent Solomon as his rival in conquering it. Satan made everything that was done in the Saba civilization right, until even after the conquest by Solomon, the descendants and successors of Saba tended to still reject the truth that their predecessors had acknowledged. The Valley of Ants, where the gathering place for the war troops of the kings controlled by Saba was already known by Solomon at his palace in Arabia, namely since the jinn who submitted to Saba, namely Boda, stole the jewel from the jinn named Ifrit which was controlled by Solomon. Solomon's journey from Arab land to Java is a short journey, namely the ability that Allah gave to Solomon by mastering the wind. Solomon's journey is in the morning like an ordinary person's journey on horseback for 1 month. Also the afternoon journey is the same as the journey of an ordinary person on horseback for 1 month. Thus Solomon's journey from morning to evening is the same as the journey of people riding horses with galloping for 1 month. Likewise with the ability of Queen of Saba, she is able to master the wind and overcome the distance traveled. Queen of Saba can float in the air to travel quickly. This can be done because her knowledge is collaborating with jinn and pra-Adam beings who can fly. We can see from the picture on the Borobudur relief. Queen of Saba has the ability to traverse distance and time at high speed. We can see later where the Queen of Saba, with her arrogance, has had kingdoms in various regions on earth. And the center of his kingdom on the flat land of the Sunda land, said with his arrogant words, "Keep our distance away." This shows that Queen Saba's ability about distance is not a problem. All distances that are considered far for Queen Saba are close. That is the basis why Queen Saba says arrogantly with words, "Keep our way." So here the two great figures of Queen of Saba and Solomon have the ability to traverse distances and times where civilization on earth has no civilization that can do this, extraordinary abilities that humans have not before and after. If Solomon has the ability to travel fast, of course there are rivals who can do it too. That's the Queen of Saba. Solomon, who knew about the Queen of Sun worshippers from Hudhud, sent a letter and dropped it to the Queen of Saba when they were doing their rituals of worshipping the sun. The letter was dropped in front of where the other kings gathered and rested at the Boko palace. Says Solomon to Hudhud, "Go with this letter of mine, then drop it on them, then turn away from them, then pay attention to what they are talking about." The letter was carried by a large creature, the pra-Adam being in the form of a bird who submitted to Solomon, departing from Solomon's palace in Arab land towards the land of Java, precisely where the queen and the kings and princes gathered. The Hudhud's journey was a fast journey. Distance and time were not constraints. From Solomon's palace to Boko palace was traveled at high speed and in fast time, so the letter arrived in the hands of Queen Saba Bilqis. Said Balkis, "O rulers, indeed a noble letter has been sent to me. In fact, that letter, from Suleiman, and in fact content, by chanting the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. That all of you do not act arrogantly towards me and come to me as people who surrender." Solomon's words to Queen Saba stuck to the word arrogant, arrogant because of the ability of power and knowledge possessed that was not possessed by humans at his time. When the Queen of Saba, who was still gathering with the kings and royal dignitaries at the Boko palace, the Queen of Saba had a conversation with those of the princes, said he was Balkis, "O rulers, give me consideration in my business, I have never decided on a matter before you are in my assembly." They replied, "We are a people who have strength and also have very courage in battle, and the decision is yours. So consider what you will command." He said, "Behold, when kings enter a land, they will destroy it, and make its noble inhabitants despicable, and this will also be what they will do." The fear of the rulers of the king of the kingdom of Saba was spoken to the Queen of Saba, namely the fear of the destruction of the kingdom if they lost in the war, the fear of the rulers of being interceded in a more elegant way according to the queen, namely by giving gifts to Solomon. The queen said, "And verily I will send messengers to them with gifts, and I will wait for what the messengers will bring back." So the troops who will bring gifts were ordered to Solomon in the form of gold and other valuables to Solomon's palace in Arab land. The troop and accompaniment that brought the gifts were carried out by people who had been able to travel quickly, by hovering over air towards Solomon's palace. So when the messenger came to Solomon, Solomon said, "Is it proper for you to help me with wealth? Then what Allah gave to me is better than what He gave you, but you feel proud of your gift. Come back to them. Indeed we will come to them with armies that they are powerless against, and surely we will drive them out of the land of Saba in humiliation and they will become contemptible prisoners." So the troops and entourage who brought gifts from the Queen of Saba returned to the land of Sunda land on the island of Java, precisely at the Boko palace. When they returned, Solomon did the dialogue with his dignitaries, namely, said Solomon, "O rulers, who among you can bring me the throne before they come to me as people who surrendered?" Solomon knew that the Queen of Saba had the ability to cross a distance in a short time, as did a group of people who brought gifts to him. Suleiman also knew that his dignitaries had the ability to travel across distances in a short time, and could also move any object to another place in no time. At the time of Solomon's kingdom, and the kingdom of Saba, the knowledge of this matter already belonged to the two kingdoms, where the two figures were figures who controlled the creatures of pra-Adam who could penetrate the earth and penetrate the sky. These creatures were neither human nor jinn. These creatures come from other planets not Earth and are more than the age of human civilization. So these creatures do not die on Earth while collaborating with humans. These creatures come and go from Earth, so that to this day there will be no fossil of these creatures on the surface of the Earth. Creatures during the time of Saba and Suleiman which are in the form of birds and are depicted on the temple on the ground. Java. Conquering the enemy kingdom by waging warfare during Solomon's time to face the Queen of Saba was a conventional way, where at that time the highest ability was the ability to travel short distances and make quick object transfers. So that Solomon conquered Saba by showing his ability more than what the Queen of Saba could do. So that to face Queen Saba, Solomon offered to her princes this and said, "O rulers, who among you can bring the throne to me before they come to me as people who surrendered?" Said Ifrit, who is clever from the genie class, "I will come to you with the throne to you before you stand up from your seat. Actually I am really strong to bring it again to be trusted." Ifrit is a group of jinn who has the ability to travel quickly and move things quickly. Ifrit is also a genie who has submitted and became Solomon's army, whose jewels were stolen by the jinn who was controlled by Saba, namely Boda. So Solomon knew there was a collaborating sun-worshipping civilization with creatures other than humans in the land of Sunda land. The ability to move the throne is only owned by jinn and non-human beings in the kingdom of Saba, but in the kingdom of Solomon this ability is owned by humans. This proves that collaboration with jinn is still low for the ability to move the throne. One of the princes in the kingdom of Sulayman volunteered for the task of moving the throne of Saba at a speed that would be done by the jinn group. He was a man who was bloodied and fleshy like us. He was named Ashif bin Barkia. Said a man who has knowledge from the Bible, "I will bring the throne to you before your eyes blink." So when Solomon saw the throne in front of him, he also said, "This includes the gift of my Lord to test me whether I am grateful or deny his blessings. Indeed my Lord is rich, most glorious." The one who moved by Solomon through a person who had studied higher science, was the throne of Ratu Saba in Sunda land to Solomon's palace in Arabia. In a blink of an eye, the queen of Saba's throne was already in front of Solomon and his princes. Solomon ordered him to slightly change the throne of Queen Saba, with the intention of whether he Bilqis could still recognize him. Solomon said, "Change for him the throne. Then we will see if he is. No, or is he including people who do not know him." The group of gift bearers who were escorted by the Queen of Saba's troops, by traveling on earth at high speed, had arrived at the palace of Saba, conveyed what Solomon ordered, and told about the greatness of Solomon's kingdom. After Queen Saba discussed with her superiors, then Queen Saba decided to surrender and submit to Solomon. So Bilqis and his troops went to the Arab land to the kingdom of Solomon, to surrender and submit to the kingdom of Solomon. After Queen Saba arrived in Arabia and entered Solomon's palace, Solomon said to Bilqis, "Is this your throne similar?" He replied, "It is as if this throne is my throne. We have been given prior knowledge and we are surrendered people." Queen of Saba, Bilqis entered the palace gate with the dignitaries and representatives of his troops. When he entered the gate he saw, the Bilqis throne was in front of him. There was only a slight change, namely the throne was better than the original Bilqis throne. Then Bilqis also said that heard also by Solomon and the dignitaries of Bilqis and Solomon. Bilqis said, "As if this throne is my throne." Immediately the Bilqis dignitaries gathered around the Queen of Saba, who concluded that they were dignitaries, believing that Solomon's greatness of knowledge exceeds the ability of the knowledge learned by the Saba's princes, namely knowledge that is considered high, about moving objects to a place, their knowledge about that they found from cooperation with jinn and non-human beings. The knowledge and abilities possessed by Solomon's superior, Ashif bin Barkia, were empirical knowledge that could be learned without cooperating with jinn beings, namely knowledge based on David's teachings and religion based on Tawhid, and at that time, had been known by the Saba officials and Queen Bilqis. They confirmed but still did not want to follow. The belief in the heights of knowledge possessed by Solomon's princes made them princes acknowledge it, and said together with words, "We have been given prior knowledge." The Bilqis rulers were defeated and felt defeated by the abilities possessed by Ashif bin Barkia. This was represented by Queen Saba's words to the rulers who were present at that time. Bilqis gave up and said, "We are the ones who surrendered." The situation was forced by their Bilqis dignitaries and the queen to acknowledge the advantages possessed by Solomon and his rulers. This should have always been they were subject to and submissive. Their previous ancestors had done this, learned and did things that were above their ability. Humans, to move objects, walk on the air, enter the earth and penetrate the sky. At the time of Saba, knowledge and processions to reach humans who could be like that had existed long before the Queen of Saba existed. The knowledge and rituals that were carried out were with Tapa and Samadhi, which was carried out by the civilization of the ancestors of the archipelago nation on the big island of Sunda land. It was during the time of Solomon that the abilities possessed by the Saba civilization could be matched. The ritual procession of sitting cross-legged is the position that the archipelago's ancestral ascetics did, to reach the level of a high scientist, who can do things that are considered unseen. This cross-legged sitting position is in the Borobudur temple, which in the end this teaching spread to the land of India to give birth to Mahavira in Jainism, then Siddhartha Gautama with the name Buddhist Ajara. The predecessors of Ratu Saba, who should have known the higher knowledge and were conquered beforehand, did not immediately surrender themselves to the teachings of the divine religion, namely the teachings of Tawhid, because their ancestors had long committed and practiced worship to other than the Creator. This is what makes them reluctant to convert. A duplicate of the throne of Sabah, which was moved by Sulayman's official Ashif bin Barkia from the land of the archipelago, was placed outside the Sulayman palace, and the kingdom of Sabah is in an area that has many islands. Water is a familiar object to Queen Sabah, where royal civilization others don't have it. When the princes of Sabah gathered to discuss and felt competed by seeing the queen there in Solomon's kingdom, Solomon was greeted by them. It was said to him, "Enter into the palace." So when he saw the floor of the palace, he thought of a large pool of water, and he exposed his 2 calves. Said Solomon, "Surely he is a smooth palace made of glass." Balkis said, "O my lord, indeed I have done wrong against myself, and I surrendered together with Solomon to Allah, Lord of the worlds." The queen was stunned to see Solomon's palace, which was very magnificent, more than the beauty of the queen of Sabah's palace in her country. Bilqis admits that she is the most oppressive of wrongdoing herself, namely feeling that she is the richest and most powerful on earth, has a high civilization and has knowledge that surpasses ordinary people. After his meeting with Solomon, Ratu Saba gave up and acknowledged the advantages that God gave to Solomon beyond what Bilqis had. Since then Bilqis followed Solomon's teachings, the teachings that do not worship the sun. The subjugation of the Queen of Saba and the royal officials of Saba to Solomon does not end there. There are duties and responsibilities of the Queen of Saba and the rulers to straighten out the teachings adopted by her people and her royal colony, namely efforts to convey to all people to leave the teaching of worship that is oriented to the sun. This is the effort of Queen Saba, who was helped by Solomon in an effort to convey to the people and royal colonies in Saba in the world, to straighten out and leave the teachings of worship to Jinn and to the sun. The efforts of the 2 figures to appear at Borobudur and the Prambanan temple complex, centered on the sun, now centered and ended in God Almighty, Sang Hyang Tunggal. It is important to remember that the civilization before Saba in the Sundanese land had a high civilization recorded in the Ramayana epic, the predecessor of the Saba civilization. Ramayana was the journey and teachings of the Rama, who were written long after the Rama dynasty. The predecessors of Saba were and experienced a period of war with the Harappa civilization on Indian soil around the Indus River, which the Rama attacked the area, and was recorded in the Bharatayuddha War. Borobudur development stages. Archaeologists suspect that the original design of Borobudur was a single, enormous stupa crowning the top. It is suspected that the massive mass of this enormous and heavy stupa endangered the body and foot of the temple, so that the architect of the Borobudur designer decided to dismantle this giant stupa and replace it with 3 rows of small stupas and 1 main stupa as it is today. The following is an estimate of the stages of development of Borobudur. The first stage. The period of construction of Borobudur is not known for sure the year, but it is confirmed that Borobudur was built during the Sundanese land period, which was still a large island. Borobudur was built on a natural hill, the top of the hill was flattened and the flat yard was expanded. Borobudur was built by a high civilization which once on earth, that civilization performed worship by worshipping the sun. The courtyard above the temple, which initially was flat and did not have a stupa, was a common ritual area facing the sun. In fact, Borobudur is not entirely made of andesite stone. The hillside is compacted and covered with a stone structure so that it resembles a shell covering the earthen hill. The remainder of the hill was covered by a layered stone structure. Initially built story apartment layout. It seemed designed as a step pyramid, but later changed. As evidence, there is an arrangement that has been dismantled. The first 3 steps were built to cover the original structure of the step pyramid. This basic form existed before the civilization of Saba, namely the advanced civilization and knowledge of the Rama civilization, which was recorded in the Ramayana epic several hundred years later after the Great War, the Bharatayuddha War. Second stage. The addition of 2 square steps, balustrade fence and 1 circular step above which is directly built a very large single stupa. This addition is to cover the large area in the middle that surrounds the Pundan terraces, so that the area, the trap which was originally designated as a place sun worship services, can no longer be used. Third phase. There was a change in design. The steps over the circle with a single large main stupa were dismantled and replaced by 3 circular steps. Smaller stupas were built in a circle on these steps with a large main stupa in the middle. For some reason, the foundation is widened, an additional leg is built that wraps the original leg and closes the lower relief. Archaeologists suspect that Borobudur was originally designed to be a single, enormous stupa crowned with square terraces. However, this large stupa was too heavy and it pushed the structure of the building to slide outward. It should be remembered that the core of Borobudur is just a hill of soil so that the pressure on the top will be spread to the outer side of the bottom so that Borobudur is threatened with landslides and collapse. For this reason, it was decided to dismantle the single large main stupa and replace it with circular terraces decorated with rows of small terraced stupas and only one main stupa. To support the temple walls from sliding down, an additional leg structure is added to wrap the original leg. This structure is reinforcement and functions like a girdle that binds the temple's body so that the body of the temple does not collapse while hiding the relief at the bottom. The fourth stage. There are minor changes such as refinement of the reliefs, addition of the outer balustrades, changes in the stairs and arches of the door gates, and widening of the legs. The change in shape, which was originally in the form of terraces, and there is a large area, especially at the top and on the central terrace, which was originally a large area where worship of the sun was carried out, is now covered by stupas and statues, so that the area for perform worship to the sun. The change in the shape of the Pundan Barandik, which is the original characteristic of the shape of the temple on the island of Java, is the original characteristic that already existed. The change in shape of Borobudur to its current form was the result of the intervention of Suleiman and the local queen ruler, Ratu Saba. This happened after the queen of Sabah Bilqis was defeated to Solomon, and together with Suleiman Bilqis surrender. I surrender with Suleiman to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Queen of Sabah and Suleiman in Java made changes to the teachings that already existed in Java and all the colonies of the kingdom of Sabah that were controlled. All the teachings that initially performed ritual worship of jinn and empties into the sun undergoing gradual changes. The worship of the sun was gradually shifted to the Almighty worship. The understanding of the hereafter was taught to them. The fundamental change was no longer worshipping the sun god. The custom of the Sabah civilization, which made the parable of being worshipped by manifesting in gods, still felt and slowly directed to the Almighty. The symbol of God that is still called Hyang still exists, with symbols that still follow the customs of the previous teachings, but all the gods are centered on the Almighty. God is Almighty. At the top it has been explained about the previous teachings of the ancestors of the archipelago. Seen in the kingdom era after Queen Saba, namely the kingdom that had existed in the land of Java, the teachings that had changed from worship to the sun turned to teachings of worship to Hyang Tunggal. They called it the Shiva religion. Shiva religion is not Hinduism. Shiva religion is the religion of the ancestors of the archipelago, which originated from the teachings of Sabah, became Hindu and Buddhist teachings in India. That's the original Dharmic. Borobudur was the center of ritual during the Sabah era to worship the sun, with the Boko Palace as the resting place for the rulers and kings of the royal colony of Sabah. In Borobudur was the gathering place for various ethnic groups in the world. The period after Queen Saba surrendered and followed the teachings brought by Suleiman, Borobudur changed its appearance, of course based on Queen Saba's approval. This change occurred in a large area above the temple, which was originally large, now covered by a stupa, as well as the circular area on the terrace. What used to be able to accommodate many people can no longer be done. The making of reliefs and sculptures was during the time of Solomon. The reliefs depict the real story of the kingdom of Saba's predecessor, the true story of Sang Rama. The statue of the statue sitting cross-legged is the ritual procedure for asceticism and contemplation that was previously practiced in civilizations before and during Sabah. Solomon made the statues and statues done and with the approval of the Queen of Sabah. Suleiman made tall buildings around Borobudur. The main thing is Prambanan and Mendit and temples around him. Suleiman hired jinn to build these buildings and statues. The statue is not to be worshipped. The statue is a depiction of the perfect ascetic process in the teachings of Sabah, which must still be displayed to honor its predecessors and as a sign of the advancement of the previous civilization. Sabah is a civilization that has noble procedures to reach the level of true humanity. Solomon was in Tanah Nusantara building tall buildings and raising horses and other livestock, which in this land the climate was very supportive, Solomon ordered the jinn to cook food on a large stove, to feed the troops and workers who built the building. One of the cooking places found today is the giant wok found in the city of central Java. Solomon built tall buildings with sculptures and made reliefs in the temple by employing jinn. From the jinn class some were obedient and some were disobedient. Among the obedient genies there were also those who were good at diving. Those who were obedient were good at diving and able to build buildings. Suleiman ordered to build a large building at the end of the Sahul continent, which is currently called Irian Jaya Island. On the seabed near the land of Papua, Solomon built a large pyramidal-shaped building that was divided into 2 levels. The building resembled a very large fortress. Possibly the building was designated by Solomon to imprison the disobedient and disobedient jinn. At the base of the northern coast of the large island of Papua, a structure similar to a fortress was found, which is estimated to be 110 kilometers long and mountain high, 1,860 meters, with a width of 2,700 meters. Solomon built buildings and statues on the earth as well as on the seabed by employing the jinn. Solomon was the one who commanded all the construction work. In order to control all work simultaneously and massively and large, Solomon positioned himself at the highest peak of the building, namely the position highest and central surveillance area. In order to trick the jinn into working to carry out Solomon's orders, Solomon sat on the stupa which was overlooked. The original Sulayman was in one of them, while another stupa was formed with a statue of a sitting person, in a position to control all the work that the jinn did. Carry out the construction of the Prambanan, Mendit and temples buildings around it. The work of the jinn is done with full obedience and fear of the threat of Sulayman if the work is not done perfectly. The threat is an underwater prison in Papuan waters, until the final stage of completing development is the making of relief and a statue to be made. Put it in a position where Solomon sat to control the jinn. God ordained Solomon to die when the work of the jinn making statues and reliefs had not been completed. Solomon was in one of the stupas that were covered. The jinns were deceived by Solomon's existence, which was difficult to ascertain Solomon's original position in the statue, and when Solomon fell and died because of a stick which is held as a barrier for the fragile body to eat termites, it is seen that one of the stupas is empty and lasts a long time. This is where the jinn just realized that the position of the standing stupa which was empty for some time was the position where Sulayman was, because the other Tarawang stupa was a stone statue. Sulayman was a human being. There was no sight of Sulayman because he died falling down at the bottom of the stupa. So now know the jinn who worked, that Solomon has died. Then at that time the jinn left his job. This can be seen from the rest of the work of the jinn who was not finished and left when it was found out that Solomon had died. We can see it from one statue in the form of a human in a sitting position that is not finished. This statue is a statue that will be placed in a position where Sulayman sits cross-legged to control the implementation of the construction of the high building of the temple and refinement of relief. Relief at the base of Borobudur found relief forms that have not been completed. Sculptures and reliefs are true. These were made by the jinn on Sulayman's order. We can see from the types of rocks used to build the temple, namely mountain andesite stone. Andesite stone with this type is a type of stone that is easy to form and only exists and comes from within the mountain, which is not easy to take. The form in the statue and relief does not use chisel techniques. All forms in the temple, both in the form of statues and reliefs, are melting techniques, which are putting something hot on the rock to form what you want. The expertise and intelligence to form on hard objects with melting kana or heating techniques cannot be done by humans. This can only be done by jinn and Satan, who do come from fire. The results of Solomon's struggle to conquer the Queen of Saba and teach the teachings of worship to one God also left historical evidence that we can still see today, which is evidence that a high civilization existed on earth and left a historical trace of the truth of the Tawhid religion in the form of the Borobudur temple. We can also find this during the struggle of Prophet Soleh to Thamud, traces of Lut's people who were destroyed and still remain, evidence of never-lasting teachings and civilizations that did not follow the teachings of the prophets, traces of this high and destroyed civilization we can still do see. The high civilization in the past that was destroyed is a reminder to humans that there is a more powerful and everything he has is a gift from the Almighty. This is the conclusion as learning to humans. Or who has created the heavens and the earth and brought down water for you from the sky. then we grow with that water gardens with beautiful views, where you are incapable of growing trees. Is there another God besides Allah? In fact, they are people who deviate from the truth. Or who has made the earth a dwelling place, and made the rivers in its crevices, and made the mountains to strengthen it, and made a separation between the two seas. Is there another God besides Allah? They don't know. Or who allows the prayer of a person who is in trouble when he prays to him, and who removes distress and makes you human as a caliph on earth? Is there another God besides Allah? You remember him very little. Or who leads you in the darkness of the plains and seas, and who brings the wind as good news before the coming of his grace? Is there another God besides Allah? Most High is Allah in what they associate with him. Or who created man from the beginning, then repeated it again, and who also provided sustenance to you from heaven and earth? Is there another God besides Allah? Say, show proof of your truth, if you are true people. Say, there is no one in the heavens and the earth who knows the unseen things, except Allah SWT, and they do not know if they will be resurrected. Actually, their knowledge of the hereafter does not end there. Instead, they doubt about it, the more so they are blind from it. Knowledge about the hereafter, namely the time of the predecessor of Sabah, namely during the time of Atlantis, the Rama dynasty had not yet arrived there. They only suspected guesswork and were even completely blind to knowing about the day of retribution, namely the hereafter. Said those who disbelieve, will we be after we become land, and so will our fathers? Are we really going to be removed from the grave? And civilization after the Rama dynasty, which is the time before Queen Saba was defeated by Solomon, they say as follows. Indeed, we have been threatened with this, and also our former fathers. This is nothing but the tales of the ancient people. The conquest of Queen Saba, the Thamud and Lut, as well as the time of the civilization of Moses, is a great lesson for humans and civilization, or a group of people who still insist on an understanding that does not deify one God or there is another God, who is worshipped. Then based on true stories about Solomon and Saba above, we can be interesting. Conclusion and say, walk ye on the earth, and see how the consequences of those who sin. Question. Anything and anyone who has ever been on the face of the earth who is considered sinful, and the consequences that have occurred and are still left with traces of interest. And do not mourn them, and do not feel narrow about what they deceived. And they disbelievers said, when will the punishment come, if indeed you are the true people? Say, maybe it has almost come to you, part of the punishment that you ask to hasten it. And indeed your Lord really has a great gift that he gives to humans, but most of them are not grateful for it. And indeed your Lord really knows what their hearts are hiding and what they are declaring. Nothing is unseen in the heavens and on earth, but is found in a real book. In fact, this Quran explained to the Banu Israel most of the things they disputed about. Lifting the true story of Solomon as an attempt to explain to the Israelites about the truth brought by Solomon, the truth of the teachings of Tawheed that was brought, teachings that reject and prohibit collaboration with jinn and Satan. Solomon controlled jinn and worked in jinn. Solomon did not worship jinn. And indeed Al-Quran is truly a guide and a blessing for those who believe. Surely your Lord will settle the matter between them by his decision, and he is mighty, all-knowing. Therefore, fear Allah, indeed you are above the real truth. Surely you cannot make the dead hear nor make the deaf hear the call, when they have turned their backs. And you cannot lead to turn blind people from their astray. You cannot make anyone hear, except those who believe in our signs, then they surrender. And when the word has fallen upon them, we will bring out a kind of creeping beast from the earth which will tell them, that in fact mankind did not believe in our signs. The creatures that we know above are creatures that do not come from earth, beings that can go in and out of the earth, penetrate the sky. A creature that has a long life until the day of resurrection. This creature has collaborated at the time of the highest human civilization, the civilization of Sabah. That being will come out and say that from the time of previous civilization, that man is not sure the truth brought by the prophets, especially in matter of the one God principle and the existence of the hereafter. And remember the day when we gathered from each people a group of people who denied our verses, then they divided them into groups. Until when they came, Allah said, have you denied my verses, but your knowledge does not cover them, or what have you done? And the words of punishment fell on them because of their injustice, so they could not say anything. Did they not pay attention? that indeed we have made it night so that they rest in it and the day will illuminate. Verily in this are the signs of Allah's power for those who believe. And remember the day when the trumpet was blown, then everything in the heavens and everything on earth was shocked, except for whom Allah willed. And all of them came to him humbled themselves. And you look at the mountains, you think he is still where he is, even though he walks as the paths of the clouds. That is the act of Allah who makes everything strong. Verily Allah knows best what you are doing. So he gets a better reward than him, while they are the people who are safe at peace from the terrible shock of that day. And whoever brings evil, their faces will fall on their faces in hell. You are not rewarded, but according to what you used to do. I was only ordered to worship the Lord of this land, Mecca. Everything that has made it holy and belongs to him, and I am commanded that I be one of those who surrender. And so that I read Al-Quran to humans. So whoever gets guidance is actually only getting guidance for good himself, and whoever is misguided then say, verily I am nothing but one of the warners. And say, praise be to Allah, he will show you the signs of his greatness, and you will know them. And your Lord is not negligent in what you do. Praise be to Allah who has what is in the heavens and what is on the earth, and to him also praise in the hereafter. And he is the most wise, knowing. He knows what entered into the earth, what came out of it, what came down from heaven and what went up to him. And he is the most merciful, the most forgiving. So that Allah will reward those who believe and do righteous deeds. They are people to whom forgiveness and glorious sustenance. And those who try to oppose our signs with the opinion that they can weaken our punishment, they receive punishment, that is, a painful kind of punishment. And those who are given the knowledge of the book of people argue that the revelation that was sent down to you from your Lord is the true one and points humans to the way of God the Almighty, the most praiseworthy. And the disbelievers said to their friends, will we show you a man who will tell you that when your body has been completely destroyed, you really will be raised again in a new creation? Is he making up lies against Allah or is there a madness in him? No, but those who do not believe in the land of the hereafter are in torment and astray far away. Then do they not see the heavens and the earth that are before and behind them? If we will, surely we will immerse them in the earth or we will drop on them the lumps from the sky. In fact, in this there is truly a sign of God's power for every servant who returns to him. And indeed we have given David a gift from us. We said, O mountains and birds, pray repeatedly with David, and we have softened iron for him. I.e., make large armor and measure the play, and do godly deeds. Truly I see what you do. And we subject the winds to Solomon, whose journey in the morning is the same as a month's journey and his journey in the afternoon is the same as a month's journey also, and we flow the liquid of copper for him. And some of the jinn are working in front of him under his control with the permission of his Lord. And whoever deviates between them from our commandments, we taste to him the punishment of hell whose flames are burning. The jinn made for Solomon what he wanted from tall buildings and statues and plates, as big as like a pond and a fixed pot above the stove. Work, O family of David, to give thanks to Allah. And very few of my servants are grateful. So when we have determined Solomon's death, nothing will show them his death except for termites that eat his stick. So when he fell down, the genie knew that if they had known the unseen, they would not have remained in humiliating torment. In fact, for the Sabaean people there was a sign of God's power in their residence, namely 2 gardens on the right and on the left. To them it is said, eat by you from the sustenance bestowed by your Lord and give thanks to him. Your country is a good land and your God is God the most forgiving. But they turned away, so we brought to them a great flood and we replaced their 2 gardens with 2 overgrown gardens, trees, with bitter fruit, the atsl tree and a little of the cedar tree. Thus we recompense them for their disbelief. And we do not impose punishment, that is but only on those who are very disbelievers. And we made between them and between the countries which we bestowed upon him, several lands which were close together and we established between the countries distances, the journey. Walk you through the cities by night and by day safely. So they said, O Lord, we distance our journey, and they persecuted themselves, so we made them talk and we destroyed them to the utmost destruction. In fact, in that there are signs of Allah's power for everyone who is patient and grateful. And in fact the devil has been able to prove the truth of his suspicion against them, and then they follow him, except for some who believe. And it is not the devil's power over them, but only so that we can distinguish those who believe in the existence of an afterlife from those who doubt about it. And your God is the most care for everything. Say, call those whom you consider as God apart from Allah. They do not have power, as much as Zara in the heavens and on earth, and they do not have a sahampion in creation, of the heavens and the earth, and they are not in between. Those who are helpers to him. And it is useless shafaat with Allah but for those who have been permitted by him to obtain it, so that when fear has been removed from their hearts, they say, what has your Lord said? They answered, the word is true, and he is most high, most great. Say, who gives sustenance to you from heaven and from earth? Say, Allah, and indeed we are you, the polytheists, must be in truth or in real error. Say, you will not be asked responsible about the sins we committed, and we will not be asked also about what you did. Say, show me the worship that you associate with him as his partners, that is impossible. In fact he is Almighty Allah, most wise. And we do not send you, but to all mankind as bearers of glad tidings and as warners, but most people do not know. And they say, when does this promise, if you are the true people? Say, for you there is a day that has been promised, the day of judgment, which you cannot ask to withdraw from it for a moment, and also, you can ask to be submitted. And the disbelievers say, we will never believe in this Quran and not also in the previous book. And how great it is if you see when the wrongdoers are brought before their Lord, some of them face the words of others. Those who are considered weak say to those who boast, if not for you we would have been people of faith. Those who are proud say to those who are considered weak, are we the ones who prevented you from being guided after the instructions came to you? No, you are actually the sinners yourself. And those who are considered weak say to those who boast, no, is actually your trickery at night and day, which hinders us when you call on us so that we will disbelieve in Allah and make allies. Him. Both parties expressed regret when they saw the doom. And we put shackles on the necks of those who disbelieve. They are not rewarded but with what they have done. And we did not send to a country even a warner, but the people who lived in luxury in that land said, surely we deny what you were sent to convey. And they said, we have more property and children than you, and we will not be punished. Say, surely my Lord enlarges the sustenance for whom he wants and constricts for whom he wants. But most people do not know. And nowhere is it not property and not nor your children that will draw you to us in the least. But those who believe and do deeds pious, it is they who get a double reward for what they have done, and they are safe in high places in heaven. And those who try to oppose our verses with the opinion that they can weaken, thwart our punishment, they are put into punishment. Say, surely my Lord widens sustenance for whom he wants among his servants and narrows it for whom he wants. And whatever items you supply, then Allah will replace them, and he is the provider of the best sustenance. And remember the day which at that time Allah gathered them all. Then Allah said to the angel, did they worship you? The angels replied, glory be to you. You are our protector, not them. Even they have worshipped the jinn. Most of them believe in the jinn. So on this day some of you do not have the power to give benefit nor harm to some of the others. And we say to the wrongdoers, taste by you the punishment of hell which you previously denied. And when reading to them our bright verses, they say, this man is nothing but a man who wants to hinder you from what your fathers worshipped. And they said, the Quran is nothing but a fabricated lie. And the disbelievers say to the truth when it comes to them, this is nothing but real magic. And we never gave them the books they read, and never, nor, sent to them before you were a warrior. And those who before them had denied, while the disbelievers of Mecca had not yet received a tenth of what we had given to the former people, then they denied my apostles. Then how great the result of my wrath will be. Say, verily I want to warn you one thing only, namely that you face Allah sincerely, in pairs or individually. Then you think about Muhammad, that there is no insane disease in your friend. He is nothing but a giver, warning to you before facing harsh punishment. Say, whatever reward I ask you, it is for you. My reward is only from Allah, and he knows all things. Say, surely my Lord reveals the truth. He is all-knowing, all the unseen. Say. The truth has come and the vanity will not initiate nor will it repeat. Say. If I go astray then actually I am misguided over my own harm, and if I get guidance it is because of what my Lord revealed to me. Verily he is all-hearing, most near. And how great it will be, if you see when they, unbelievers, are shocked, on the day of resurrection, then they could not escape and they were caught from a near place, to be taken to hell, and, at that time, they said, We believe in Allah. How can they attain faith, from that far place? And indeed they have denied Allah before that, and they speculate about the unseen from far away. And prevented between them from what they want as was done to people who were like them in the past. Indeed they were, in the world, in deep doubt. 10.Borobudur book is not a temple. Part 10 is complete. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and research. Complete info. WhatsApp to +62813 2132 9787.